Highlight Real Time. This is three legendary female entrepreneurs with three very different journeys, but behind it all is one universal truth.
A lot of people ask me, well, how do you start a business? And I'm like, I can start any business because to me it's a process. You dream it.
Mindset contributes hugely to not just your success, but how you create opportunity, your resilience, and the growth that you experience. Before you think about building a business, you really need to first build yourself.
If you take a glass of water, it's full. Put an egg in it, it'll overflow. But if you take an empty glass and put an egg in and fill it with water, it won't. And that basically meant is decide what you want and build your life around that.
And success isn't just about what you build, it's about who you become in the process.
I just remember feeling relieved that I no longer had to kind of push against the barriers to what could happen. I didn't know for sure that we would grow, but of course we did.
After selling the business, it was such a watershed moment for me when I had been so focused for so many years of achieving, and then you do it. And then you're like, this is not what I thought it would be. And you have this like, oh gosh, my identity was so wrapped up in the business as well.
Drive is a critical part of success, but it can also be a burden. I call this the tyranny of drive. For those that don't have the monkey, they look at people that are, accomplished high achievers, and they go, you're lucky, you're motivated. And you're like, you don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
It means that you can't shut off, you can't shut down. From breaking barriers to breaking through burnout, these founders reveal what it really takes to sustain success.
We had multiple businesses
as well.
So my mother, she ran the numbers.
Okay,
and
great.
Dad built the businesses. And so we were able to, because we had, the restaurant, we used to own the Sheraton restaurant and motels. We had the panel shop, the parts business. We had the farms. Dad did commercial real estate. It balanced through all of that. And he started them all from scratch with his own capital, that he developed, So, and he was very, very savvy. One of the farms he bought, there were two neighbouring farmers feuding. So Dad basically got a lease on the land, built a house, and then was able to leverage that into buying the land. So he was just very savvy about how he did things. He always looked outside the lines. So one of the things I say about, I don't really see constraints in doing things. Dad decided to do something and then he figured out how, which sort of sounds pretty basic, but most people look at the constraint and then say, well, it can't be done. Where my father's view was actually anything can be done. You basically have to create that. So I was brought up in a very manifesting, creating, but very practical as well with the business that, all the kids worked in the business. That was sort of our upbringing.
Okay. Remarkable opportunity for a young person to observe and participate in that. And we compare it to today, and we're both quite heavily involved in the tech sector. And so, YouTube is the greatest free training resource in the world. There's all of these MOOCs, massive open online courses that can teach you anything for $5. ChatGPT can give you answers to anything that you want in the world. You can, all these incredible tools. I'm really curious about your father when none of those resources existed. Because this books back in those days would have been fairly rudimentary. And when you studied business, you were probably studying Keynesian economic theory,
yes, exactly.
Which is hopeless for building a business, right? So what is it about him, do you think, that enabled him, other than trial and error, which is one way to learn things, but that can be quite expensive and quite painful if you continue to make errors along the way. But what is it about him? I'm curious what he may have done to enable that success in an environment where he wasn't able to learn from others or observe others.
Well, you can have a view that learning is hard, or you can have a view that learning's a process and a part of everything. So my father was incredibly driven. So as an example, he took up judo when he was 16, 17 years old, and he made Japanese black belt in 2 years. So his view was things were just a decision. And it's really interesting because there's a a huge amount of learning that's available. But the thing that uniquely I got in my upbringing was the mindset. And it's if you have a compliance mindset, you think you can go and learn how to do something. Or typically doesn't teach you how to be creative. Because with being creative, if you think about a high performance athlete, you have to be able to dream what it is you can do. And then you have to do the huge amount of work and process to get there. And so versus reading in a book that you go and train this many hours and you do this, that doesn't enable you to be high performance. It's actually, like my son just did the Tiara Trail.
Oh, yes.
And he did it in 100 days walking,
yep.
right? And he was really
1,000 Ks, right?
That's right. So 40 Ks a day,
yep.
pretty much. And this is like orienteering. There's not really a track. And it was really interesting. He really noticed that, there might be 3 cabins, and he said they got fixated that they were going to get to the final one. And he realized, though, that if he hadn't done that, he would have stopped at another one because it was so hard. And so it's sort of the difference in life of saying, actually, well, I'm going to get to the next cabin versus dreaming that you're going to get to the top. And it gives you a completely different mindset. And it gives you a view of completely different decision-making that you make along the way. So I was brought up in that mindset. And that was really the gift of my parents.
Yeah.
But then also with the work and with the process. So one of the things, a lot of people ask me, well, how do you start a business? And I'm like, I can start any business, because to me it's a process. You dream it, but then you experiment and you do things and you intensely learn every moment. I don't see that as hard. I see that as I'm addicted to that process of experimentation.
I'm a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes, my husband adores Arnold, yes.
I'll explain why. So he had a book that came out a couple of years ago, the Netflix documentary series, which essentially replicated that, put bodybuilding on the map and dominated that sport for 7 years. Couldn't speak in English, wanted to be a movie star, went to the States, dominated that for 2 decades, decided that he wanted to become a politician. He probably could have been the president if he was a naturalized US citizen, but he wasn't born there. So became the second most powerful politician in the States. And in the background, what most people don't know is Arnold is a billionaire, and that's from his investment activities. So started property developing as soon as he turned up in the States in the 1970s with no money to his name, and he just started to buy and build. Phenomenal individual. And when you profile Arnold, the thing that he said that he believes separates him from others is his ability to visualize. That's the one thing that makes a difference. And so, one of the things that I've acknowledged about most founders is that, you take, let's say 1,000 founders, 995 of them would work really, really hard. So you just take hard work off the table. It's the great leveler of entrepreneurship. So I'm going to talk and just delve a little bit deeper into the subject, because it's one that I haven't really explored deeply with others on the show that have this mindset, this ability to visualize and kind of, dream and all these other things. So we talked about, growth of skills specifically, because I asked the question about your dad having to develop skills to be able to do the thing. But then we started talking about mindset. If we were to just use those two to be partial ingredients that would constitute someone's ability to succeed. So what would you put the ratio of those two as being?
Well, it's interesting because, I've just writing my first book, but have built a whole online program. So I have 2 that I'm in the process of doing. And one of them is called $1 Billion Mindset with the Growth Vortex. And the second is called Entrepreneurial Superpowers. So to be successful, you have to be able to do both. And but if you don't have the mindset, it doesn't matter if you have the capability to do it, because the mindset changes how you contextualize everything, how you see opportunity, and how you process learning. And that's the absolute key. And then you've got to learn what I call entrepreneurial superpowers, which there's certain things that you can't outsource to other people because it matches the creative cycle. And so you need both, but the first thing you need is the mindset. And this is the reason why, I just spent 4 years doing intense learning with Kiwi entrepreneurs. And what really became clear at the end of it was that was the most important thing, because I lived in Silicon Valley for 25 years, but I lived in this mini vortex of growth mindset with my father. And I found that in Silicon Valley, and that everyone's thinking in this way. every day. And outside of there, you just don't get it. And so that's what is truly transformative and critical. And because if you put that with the ability with an insight as to where there is an opportunity, the ability to work hard and the ability to learn, that's sort of, to me, what the entrepreneurial essence is.
Yes.
It's not. So yes, you have to learn how to start a company, grow a company, pay payroll, all those things. But that doesn't, like you said, that doesn't create a company.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience building, listing. It was just incredible. And but I didn't know if I wanted to do it again, because I think this was part of the, very Kiwiness of me. It's sort of like the way people treat you when they think you're very wealthy, the way the influences people try to exert when you're in control of a big asset, which we were at the time. And I didn't really know if I wanted to do that, because I didn't really like that side of human nature. So I went into a very deeply reflective time. I took a year's sabbatical. And at the end of that year, I decided, you know what, I was going to do it differently, and I was going to do it my way. And there was a real mantra. Sort of the ethos was, you have to focus, you've got to build your company, and when you're successful, you can have what you want. And when you break your back and you watch, you don't know if you're going to be able to walk, or you don't know what that looks like, I sort of realized, well, you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. So I asked myself in that year, what was it I wanted? What did I want my life to look? And I read a Buddhist Buddhist book, and there was a saying in it which says, if you take a glass of water that's full, put an egg in it, it'll overflow. But if you take an empty glass and put an egg in and fill it with water, it won't. And that basically meant is decide what you want and build your life around that. So I decided that I wanted to have a family, and that I didn't want to, my first venture, I worked 6 days and slept on the 7th. And didn't see family, didn't see friends, sacrificed my health for that. And so I decided I was never going to miss another family birthday. I was never going to miss another big event, that I was going to work, I wasn't going to work on the weekends, which doesn't sound like that. And then we started a business for my husband. And then I also wanted to give back. So I joined the Red Cross fundraising, and then started this global group for women, did all of it at the same time. And
how did the not working 6 days a week work out for you?
Very disciplined. Constraint theory. It's all constraint theory. So what I discovered was I earned the same amount of money, as CEO of the next company, but I had, 2 kids, a cat and a dog, the housekeeper, the nanny, the au pair. We started multiple companies, and I did all of it. And it was just a decision. I'm very, in terms of how to make that work,
Back to that mindset piece.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's constraint theory. So what I learned was it was all possible. You just make different decisions and optimize in a different way, which is what I did. So the next company I built to just under 100 million and sold that for 150 million. The wine company we built to a really nice little $10 million company. With the Red Cross, I built their fundraising capability to the point that I got a special citation. I started one of the first for-profit, non-for-profits in West Africa, and ended up, mentoring the president of Liberia. I got invited to Clinton Global Initiative. I did the whole social venture circuit as how you build social venture. And I had a beautiful son and a daughter, and a vibrant family life. And I never missed another party in New Zealand, My grandmother's 95th, I flew from New York on a Friday and arrived on, I left on Thursday, arrived Saturday morning, had the party Saturday night, flew back on Sunday, but I was there, never missed it.
Yeah.
And had a really successful portfolio life and did it my way,
So you went through all of those exits, and then you decided to focus on establishing how you could contribute to the New Zealand startup ecosystem. And that's been a real kind of concentrated direction of your energy over the last few years.
Hi, it's Josh. Thanks for listening to the show. When founders talk about the dream exit, they're really talking about freedom. Freedom to choose how to use their time and to decide
What comes next? As a client of JB Ware in New Zealand, I know this is what sets them apart. They help entrepreneurs and leaders turn success into significance. A great exit isn't just about the commas in your bank account. It's about what those commas allow you to create. Two Commas is proudly partnered with JB Ware, helping founders by putting their wealth to work for generations. We had a conversation off camera, which was, what will be, essentially. And this is meant to happen for me. That's a principle that I carry around in life because,
100%.
I've adopted the stoic way of thinking, which in reality says that there's very little that we have control over.
Yes.
So we have control over how we react or respond to something and what we make that thing mean. And otherwise, we have very little control over things. And so, and if I combine that with low expectations, which is sometimes hard, I'm going away to Central America in a few weeks and, quite excited about that quite quietly, but I'm managing those expectations down daily so that then, therefore, everything becomes amazing because my expectations are super low.
Yeah.
And so that's me, mixing those two things together, things are meant to happen. Why is this happening for me, not to me? And so, is that kind of a bit of the mentality that you have around these things anyway?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And especially I think I've done lots of sort of self growth and trying to understand. I think I have been such a doer, and it gets very addictive, that sort of behaviour, constantly busy, lots of adrenaline. But that I don't think that's long term it's not
sustainable.
It's not great for your health,
No.
The cortisol and
Yeah.
all of that. So for me, and especially since selling the business, an opportunity to do some deep reflecting on, well, how can I be more present and be more aware of how I react to things and live in the moment more and enjoy things more. I think, I can remember we actually did a mindful course a while back, and then I realised, gosh, I really don't live in the present at all. And that was a real cathartic moment to go, what is it if we're not here right now? Where if I'm constantly in the future thinking about, the next exciting thing. I remember being at some sort of event when I was really busy in the busy times and just thinking, I was really looking forward to this. And I'm in this event and I'm not really enjoying it, but I'm here right now. Why can I not? Where's the joy in this? So that started my kind of spark of wanting to know more about my internal kind of connection to who I am truly, and that my thoughts are not me. I have the ability to decide how I think about things. And so I'm very much on that path of trying to search for joy in the little things in life, because actually I definitely think after selling the business, it was such a watershed moment for me when I had been so focused for so many years of achieving, and then you do it. And then you're like, this is not what I thought it would be. And you have this oh gosh, my identity was so wrapped up in the business as well. So it was a real sort of, it was actually quite a hard time selling the business for myself to kind of go, oh gosh, I had to face myself a little bit and decide what is important to me as well. So I've been really grateful for the time to have to learn about that and, and put in some more practices to, maintain my emotional, spiritual, physical health to be more balanced and enjoy this incredible gift, which is life, right? Because I think you can just be I was so obsessed with, achievement and doing the thing that I wasn't even enjoying the time that even though I was achieving, and I've always achieved, when was I taking time for myself to enjoy it? So I've been really grateful that I've had a pause in my life to deep dive into that true self.
I've had a similar experience, woo-woo alert.
I know. I'm like, oh.
And it is a gift, right, to be able to go through that journey, to head into that space. And so I'm curious, I'll share mine in a second, but what's been one of the more difficult or the more transformative experiences that you've had on this kind of growth and development journey?
I think, obviously, I have started a new business. And being conscious that I don't want to go back to my old ways in terms of just that frenetic kind of, intense, can't get off the, hamster wheel sort of thing. But excited about the opportunity of, all the things that I've learnt in the time that I have had some space to reconnect with my true self, put those different practices in place. And I think there's just new things that I've learnt through reading and podcasts and all that, and I actually have been on a yogic journey, so
Yes.
Which has really helped me to, I think, probably calm my nervous system more,
Yes.
and just get more balance in my life. So I think for me now, it's such a quest I really treasure, and it's such a I'm so dedicated to making sure that I carve out time to be calm, I really put that on a pedestal. And I think it still catches me out because I am naturally a high achiever, a really hard worker, and I'm excited by life. It's the balance between achieving and doing all the things, but still maintaining that sort of core of calm, and I'm really, I'm excited to put what I've learnt into this new business and, do things differently. Yeah, I say that now, but
yeah, we'll see. We'll get to that. I call it the tyranny of drive, and it's the metaphor that I use is that there's a monkey, for those of us that are driven, there's a monkey who resides on our back, and he has a riding whip.
Yeah, what's the name of your monkey?
I actually haven't given him a name.
No.
Maybe I should personify and bring him to life a little bit.
Yeah.
And so the monkey basically is there just kind of whipping, go harder, go faster, right? And so for those that don't have the monkey, they look at people that are, accomplished high achievers, and they go, you're lucky, you're motivated. And you're like, you don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
It means that you can't shut off, you can't shut down. And there's always the desire and the drive and the almost like a insatiable need just to keep on going and striving. And so that can be exhausting. You talked about the anxiety, and in the modern world, and as a busy entrepreneur, I call myself, I had I had stress in my life. No, I didn't. I had constant low grade anxiety, and sometimes it was peaky anxiety.
Yeah.
Cortisol in the system, horrible experience. I'll share the things that I've done, and I'm curious about some of the practices that you have. So I've gone and lived with a monk for a week. So meditated for 8 to 10 hours a day over the course of a week. That was hard.
Yeah.
That wasn't super enjoyable. The discomfort actually sitting in the seat was one of the hardest things for that duration of time. I journal extensively, so self-reflection, journaling, writing. I found that it's a wonderful method for me to work through any problems that I might be having in life or in relationships or in working something through. I call it the conversation with the higher self, because once you sit there and you write for a long enough time, and if you get able to practice doing it, and you can really tap into this unconscious kind of, better being. And it's really hard to be a dick when you're writing things down because it's staying on paper. Yeah. It's hard to be an ass, right? Yeah. So there's obviously meditating, breath work as well. I found all of those practices super, super helpful. And then putting the hot and the cold in there too for kind of wellness and longevity and those sort of things. Have you had any kind of unusual, growth kind of experiences that you'd want to share?
Yeah, well, as it turned out, my child got a late diagnosis for being neurodivergent. So it sort of pushed me into kind of understanding and, thinking about, cognitive behavior. He went through cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah. Right. So that sort of was that kind of connection of between, what's your thought, what's your mind, and what's your emotion. So that was sort of one part of it that actually, and, I just deep dived on it, everything I could over up. So I felt really empowered. It's been a really positive experience ultimately for our family to have that knowledge and really help him through that. And he's in a great place now, which is, I think partly growing up, but, I did put a hell of a lot of work into that, and that sort of understanding that sort of mind connection with your thoughts and how powerful that is. I think my own therapy, going to a therapist has really helped sort of unpack different sort of parts of myself. Yes. Sometimes when you get stuck on a thought or something, using different techniques to, there's a thing called detective thinking, which actually I did with my son, which is often with anxiety, you're very focused on the one thought, and your brain is like tunnel vision. And there's a way of actually, it's just a story. So there's a way of you being able to actually give your brain the opportunity to think about the other stories.
Right.
So you ask a series of prompts, which is what happened last time the situation arose? what's happened when you've seen other people go through this situation, and what's been the result? So it allows your brain to think of, suddenly, instead of just that one story that you're telling yourself, it allows you to come up with half a dozen different. So it reduces the energy around that kind of repetitive negative thought, that, automatic negative thought that you've got running around. So that's been something great that I've been able to use with my son, kind of think about myself as well. Layering on that, really making sure exercise is super key to kind of, it's not, and that's that yogic kind of principle. It's your mind, it's your body, it's your soul. And I have really, luckily my sister is on a spiritual journey as well. We went to India last year together. Oh, so that was just fantastic. And, I meditate. But I'm also really like, I think, one of the joys that we have in life is connecting with people. That's actually, and that's the kind of thing of, going, what is it that's important? And I've been given this chance to think about what is important to me. It's connecting, and it can be connecting with anybody. It can be connecting with the person in the supermarket. We're all people. So I take great delight in, wherever possible, kind of, what interaction can I have with somebody that's going to be an uplifting experience, even if it's a small exchange at the supermarket.
Yes.
So that's sort of, and within a team as well, like I think about my new team, I've really leaned into making sure that I'm really pushing myself with connecting, and, if there's conflict, not shying away from it, but going into it in a really, and it's been so enjoyable when there's been some sticky parts, rather than sort of squirming away from it. If you can lean into them and work out, because it's just your response to someone sometimes if there's a challenge. So if you lean into it and go, gosh, and really get to the real why behind it, what an uplifting experience that you can come away from what was like a really yucky exchange to go, I actually misinterpreted that, for one, which is usually the case. But also, now I understand you more. Yes. And now I can know that that's a trigger for you. So maybe I won't say it in that way. I'll come and approach, just that kind of being open to really deep feedback is something that I'm sort of really excited to kind of, that next layer of sort of just being older and kind of knowing sort of how you want to evolve. And I think that's going to help my journey with stress levels and just because conflict always exists in business, right? I mean, I know what I'm getting into. Going and doing a new business, I'm not taking it lightly. Yes, but I'm really being conscious about how I want to do things differently. So,
Thank you for sharing.
That's all right.
I think it was Plato that said that the greatest single, and I'm paraphrasing, and most challenging and yet satisfying journey of discovery that we can have in our lives is to know ourselves as an individual. And my experience for me is that my self-awareness was super, super low through my 20s and 30s. And then I had the time and the wherewithal and the distance and a partner that was challenging me to kind of step back and think about how I was showing up in the world. And so been on a deep journey of self-reflection and self-discovery. And there's some things that I've learned along the way which are quite helpful in framing things, because the journey you were talking about was really about how we frame. It's not the experiences in life that determine the quality of life that we have. Yes. It's what we make those things mean, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so how we process them and then what we do about those things. And so that's framing, right, is essentially, so if you can have the skill of reframing that thing for yourself or helping others do that, then it can enrich something. So there's another thing which I find quite helpful as well, which is mental models. And the one that popped into my head a second ago was Hanlon's razor. And we encounter people on a day-to-day basis in a huge variety of different circumstances. To be a human is to have interactions with other people, unless you choose to lock yourself up at home and get everything delivered, which is weird. And sometimes people behave weirdly. And so the temptation that we can have, especially if we're having a bad day, might be to attribute someone's bad behaviour, someone cutting you off in traffic, for example, or someone serving you rudely at the cafe, to malice or to just being a bad person, right? Hanlon's razor says, don't attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity. And so it's quite freeing to kind of go, and stupidity frames it in a negative way, but if someone cuts you off in traffic, then you might go, what a terrible driver, what an asshole. But you could go, they probably didn't see me. They probably didn't check their wing mirror. And that really lightens the experience for you, and that it also kind of takes the angst away and, makes you not send some hateful thoughts towards someone, which is just poisoning anyway. So, yeah, interesting.
And a build on that is that, someone does that to you, they say something rude about you or cuts you off in traffic or whatever. It is my choice to respond to that. I'm the one giving that energy to that situation. And so if I have control on that and I choose not to get angered by it, well, that is actually on me to manage myself.
Yes. Yeah, 100% agree. So you had the two, let's go back to the 2 exit.
Yeah.
And then you were working for the business that acquired your business.
Yes.
At what stage did you decide to head out, and what did the kind of next couple of steps look like for you?
Yeah. So I stayed in the business for 9 months. And that was the perfect amount of time I launched 3 or 4 different new products that we talked about, made sure that the team was settled, and also implemented the changeover of the manufacturing internally. And then it just felt like the natural time for me to say goodbye. And we actually buggered off to Arrowtown and did a ski season there with the kids. And
I always wanted to do that.
Yeah, It's so cool because they do ski in school.
Right.
So every Friday I was a ski mum, and the kids had 1 day of skiing each. So, yeah, it was really, really cool, and just such a beautiful, it's just heavenly down there. So that was really special. And then after that, kind of COVID hit. COVID. So I think, like I said before, it was definitely sort of a big kind of suddenly the phone's not ringing, what am I doing with myself sort of thing, and COVID as well. But I had a few kind of hobbies that I was really keen on. I have, creative side. I paint. I actually got top for New Zealand in painting back in the day. And it was a really hard decision because I had to decide between going and having an art career or do sciences.
What tipped the balance for you? The art career is not a terrifically orthodox one in New Zealand. I have a niece that I'm supporting through art education at the moment, actually, and I'm a passionate art collector. Yeah. And so I'm aware of the space, and the whole struggling artist thing is a real deal.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real. So was that the tipping point for you?
I think my parents were both in the artistic arena. My dad was a ceramic artist, and my mum was a fashion designer back in the day. So and all of their friends were artists. So I saw firsthand the financial struggles, including my own parents. They were never money was always a bit short in our family. So it was a real conscious decision to go, I think I can't come back to the sciences, but I probably could come back to my art. And it was such a beautiful gift, that award to me, because I probably, if I hadn't got it, I probably would have gone, I'm not that much of a painter. But it really gave me that thing of no, you actually do have you can paint. You are going to blooming pick up a paintbrush. So that was one of the things I did when I sold the business. And I was terrified. I hadn't painted for 25 years. And I remember my first gently wall. But it was such a special thing to reconnect with my true self. Painting and being creative is definitely part of who I am. So it allowed time to do that. Also do surfing as well. And I hadn't done that since I was in my 20s, and being a mum. So I quickly got pretty busy, as well as I grew up at a place called Parkery Beach, north of Auckland, and it's had been sand mined for 80 years, and I've seen the deterioration of that beach firsthand. And I had an opportunity to be involved with, the mining company were coming up for its consent. I got involved with a grassroots community-based campaign to try and stop the consent at RMA hearing. We succeeded there. They took us to the High Court. So we had this whole incredible so that kept me quite busy. And it was exciting in twofold, because it made me recognise I still have a lot of energy for going and doing something I'm really passionate about, the environment, and it actually helped build a bridge to me kind of actually acknowledging in myself that nature is really, really important. Being a mum, I'm really conscious of what's happening on the planet and thinking, and I have had, climate anxiety for sure. And I thought, well,
join you on that.
It's sometimes terrifying. And so I made a conscious decision that I thought, well, I do think I've still got energy for another business. I know myself. I love business, but I was like, right, if I'm going to go back in to this, because I know what it's going to take, it's a really conscious decision to do something where I feel like it's going to be helping the planet. Yeah. And I just was really lucky to stumble across this new emerging technology where you can upcycle food waste using insect bioconversion. So it's a beautiful circular play on using an underutilized waste stream and using nature to create an alternative protein that can be fed to pets and aquafeed. So sort of a disruptor in the food chain, and using some really cool tech as well. And it just pushed me to a place that, I never dreamed I'd be a tech, a clean tech entrepreneur. So it's been a really exciting, I never thought I'd be in this place, in the venture capital world and,
yes.
Raising capital and, starting this type of new emerging industry.
I wrote a letter explaining that I was, a stay-at-home mum and that I was looking for part-time work essentially, and because I was an engineer, I could do this task. I didn't say it, but it sounded quite trivial to me. 2 days later, New Zealand Post was super quick in those days. So 2 days later, I got a phone call from this guy called Andy, who owned the company, which was a market research company. And he said, I need you to come in and talk to me. You sound just right for this job. And I went, well, I can't come in today. He said, I need you to come in today if possible. I said, well, I haven't got childcare, so can we do tomorrow? I'll see if the neighbours can look after the kids. And he said, bring them. He made this arrangement that he would employ me on an hourly rate. I would come in half a day a week to deliver last week's work and collect and be briefed on the next project.
So you actually invented remote working?
I did.
Accidentally.
It was work from home in 1987.
Yeah, wow, amazing.
And how forward thinking was that?
Yeah, that's incredible.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm always deeply grateful to him for that, because not only did it give me something intellectual to do, which I really needed, that I could do around the children, but it also gave me an opportunity to discover a whole new world of solving problems. When you solve engineering problems, there's a structural framework that you work with. There's Newton's law, and physics has rules. Yes. In those days, and to some extent still, I think, the rules around human behaviour are not well formed. And that is what market research is essentially doing. It's trying to predict and influence how people decide what to do, how they decide what to buy, how they decide whether or not to recycle, or what they believe, and all those sorts of things. And so I found this whole new world. Market research or consumer analytics had existed when I'd gone to university. It's what I always would have done.
Oh, you were born to do it kind of thing.
Because I found studying human behaviour so much more rewarding than the engineering that I'd absolutely loved. And so about 4 years in, three to 4 years in, there was an unfortunate set of incidents in which Andy and I fell out. It had to do with how he was running the business. So I kind of got to the point where I thought, talk to Peter, and I thought, maybe we should buy the business or try to buy the business. And when that didn't work, and the relationships between Andy and I became tense, as you can imagine. So probably we didn't handle it very well, but the intent was good, because I kind of saw that we could add something in terms of, I didn't think of it in these terms, but now when I look back, it should have been a conversation about adding capital to shore up the firm while we moved forward to the next level of growth.
Yes, let's move forward together.
And it wasn't that sort of conversation.
Yeah.
It was seen more as an attempt
Like an
of a
aggressive
takeover.
takeover. Yeah,
exactly. And that was, anyway, it is what it is.
Because those were the days, of course, of the M&A, the buyout, the roll-ups, the leverage buyouts, and asset stripping and that sort of stuff. So that was in the background.
Well, exactly.
So he was probably, this is Ron Riley turning up.
But neither of us were we're sophisticated in terms of businesses. Yeah. And so my initial reaction was, well, I should go and work for another research company. So I made some applications. And by then I was not working from home. By then I was working like 60-hour weeks, some of it from home. And so I had some interviews with other research companies, and I always remember this one where the CEO looked at my CV of all the things I'd done, the uranium and the margarine and the cement and the research and so on, and he said, I just don't understand. When are you going to decide what you actually want to do with your life?
I would have thought the virtue that you were sitting in front of him for the interview would have been enough of a sign.
Well, true. Yeah. And so...
I guess you didn't join that guy.
Well, no, I went back to my desk and I wrote him a note thanking him for interviewing me, but please don't offer me your job because I'm not going to take it.
Good on you.
And I went home and my husband said, you don't have to work. Right. Just take a break. I was like, I'm not ready to take a break. I'm just getting started in this. And so he said, well, why don't you start your own business?
Mm. For you as a founder, you were a co-founder with a colleague and you had to navigate your way through a lot of early things that were unfamiliar to you.
Yeah.
And then you decided that I need to go this alone. What was that moment like when you realised that this is now my business? I'm the sole shareholder. I have a wonderful husband who's been giving me some really sage insight and wisdom along the way, but it's really on me. What did that moment feel like, Deb?
I just remember feeling relieved. Relieved that I no longer had to kind of push against the barriers to what could happen. I didn't know for sure that we would grow, but of course we did. And, I just felt this sense of relief that I no longer had to worry about keeping Judy happy.
Yes.
And that I could deal with the rest of the team, which was growing. I mean, we grew. I had the business for 15 years, and we grew to just over 100 people that we employed, which in New Zealand is a reasonable size business.
It's a sizable firm.
Yeah, it wasn't the biggest research company.
Right.
But it was, I like to say, it was the most awarded. So, we certainly were recognised in the industry for the innovation that we brought.
Yes.
Because, of course, when you come to something from a different perspective, Judy and I had agreed on one thing. In the days where we started the business, market research liked to position themselves as the scientists of the marketing industry. And part of that was that they felt they needed to keep themselves clean in terms of just giving the client the information. So they would just give the client the data and no advice about what, it's not our role to give advice, they would say. And indeed, that was part of why Andy should have been really happy that Judy and I left, is because we'd started exposing him to the risk that we were out there saying, well, here's your data, and here's what I think you should do about it.
You have an opinion, right? So
yeah. And so I expressed the opinion once, while I was still working for Andy, I expressed the opinion about an advertising campaign that I'd researched on behalf of a very big client in the ad agency. We're presenting the results of this ad, which has unfortunately already been made. They chose not to test it before they made it. And it was one of those epic productions. And I was like, this is a dog. There's just no other way to describe it. This is a dog. People watch a 60-minute ad and they don't even know what the product is. This is a dog.
Wow.
And the ad agency head rang Andy before I even got back to the office and said, if you don't withdraw that report, I'll make sure you never work again in this industry.
Wow, that's quite a big claim.
Yeah. So we were the researchers that got off the fence,
Yes.
basically.
Right.
And that's the reputation we built. And because of that, we attracted the types of clients who wanted a more partnering relationship, who wanted us to become more embedded in their business, because, of course, the more we know about their business, the better our advice can be. Whereas at that time in other companies, clients would say, well, I'm not going to give you all the backstory because I don't want to taint the data by telling you what's actually going on. And so it was a completely different model. So I'd started talking about how hard it was to resign from your own business, which I now see, I see the signs in founders now that I work with, that sense of, I'm just done.
Yeah. And was it, I talk about this with people as being, people fall out of love with their business because often there's a deep connection, especially with your first entity, and our identity gets tied up in it. And so you have this kind of sense of ownership, of love, all these sorts of things. So was that the place that you found yourself in?
Yeah, I was definitely out of love with it.
Right.
I still loved doing the client work.
Practitioning.
Yeah, the practitioning, yes. The stuff I was good at.
Yes.
And so it took quite a long time for me to figure out how to deal with this. And then one Monday morning when I didn't want to go to work because I just couldn't face it anymore, Peter said, so why don't you just get someone to come and run Research Solutions for you? I went, what?
I can do that?
Who would do that? And interestingly, he had an answer, though. He said, there's that guy that you keep interviewing. Every time you advertise a senior account manager role, a research director role, that guy applies, and you've offered him the role twice now, and he hasn't taken it. He said, the last time he didn't take it, you told me that he said his reason for not taking it was that he saw his career path as moving into management, and because Research Solutions was so tightly held and owned by you, he didn't see the opportunity to move into management.
This is a great story.
So I went,
Interesting.
Right.
So Peter was kind of acting as your informal board.
As a board, yes. I mean, if I'd had a board, they would have told, hopefully, they would have been brave enough to tell me long before that that was the solution. And I subsequently, I said to him, what took you so long to tell me? And he said, you weren't ready to hear it.
Yeah, right. You had to have that moment to get to the stage. So did you hire the guy?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I rang him that day. I said, do you want to come and run Research Solutions? And he went, what? The timing was also good because he was in a transition. The company he worked for was being taken over, or there was something going on in his business.
Yeah, got it.
And he said, what? Where are you going? I said, no, I'll work for you. I'm not going anywhere. I want to go back to working with clients.
Yes.
And so we had a chat and we made a deal. And the deal was very much around, it looked almost like a co-founder deal.
Wow.
So there was an equity stake in exchange for reaching targets, basically.
ESOP, basically.
Yes, although it wasn't structured like, but I think they'd call it a shadow share scheme or something like that in those days.
Yeah.
And I always remember I gathered the team together. Almost all of our team was in Auckland. I gathered the team together in the call centre, which was the only area big enough. And I brought him in. And I introduced him and I said, he'll be running Research Solutions now. And there was like this stunned mullet silence from the whole team.
Someone dropped a glass.
And the first person to speak said, "Are you dying?" And it was like a terminal illness diagnosis was the only possible thing she could think of that would explain why we were suddenly going to have someone else running the company.
Yes, well, because you were Research Solutions, right? And their eyes.
And, much as I say I hated running the company and I was not good at it, I was super good at leading the team.
Right.
And so they were not unhappy with how the company was being run.
Yeah, it's that great leader but poor manager kind of paradox. Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
And so there was that. And then, so he started and he took the office.
Yes, okay. The corner office with the rubber plant. Yep.
And I took a desk out I loved working in the open plan space anyway. I'd always had, even when I had the office.
Yes.
The only thing my team complained about was that I wouldn't have an office.
Right.
I always worked in the open plan area with everyone else.
Right.
And then as we grew and we took on more floor space, basically, eventually there was this thing that was Debra's office, which was seldom populated, but it was there. So the new general manager took the office.
Yes.
Happily. And I went back to my desk in the open plan area.
Yes, happily.
And very happily. And for about the first 2 weeks, every single day I would get an email from one of the team saying, "He says this, this, this. We're just wondering what you think."
Go and check with Mum.
And I had a cut and paste that I sent back saying, "He is running the company now. What I think no longer matters."
Wow.
And not that it didn't matter to me.
No, of course.
But I knew
you had to
that
support.
the day I stood up and said, "I'm sorry, that's not how we do things around here."
Yes.
He would be out the door and I would be left holding the baby
Back in the same place again. Yeah. I'm going to pause on this because this is something that I think I need to laud you for the maturity that you approached this with. You know, you said that it was looking me in the face and timing and that sort of stuff, but you need to be ready to take that step to bring someone into the business. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to highlight there. The first is that the maturity that you had to bring in essentially a co-founder in about year 10, year 12 of the business.
Year 10 maybe.
Yeah, year 10. So that's a long way down the path. And so for those that are watching and listening that are in the entrepreneur place or they're early on in their business, you know, their first 2 or 3 years or so, it's okay to go and find a co-founder at year 3, 4, 5 or 10.
Absolutely.
It's okay. Treat them as an equal.
Never too late.
It's never too late, right?
No.
Especially once you have that moment of realization that you're in a place of functionally not enjoying a lot of the work that you do. And I see this so often. That's the first thing I want to highlight. And the second thing I want to double click on this is that many people reach this stage and they hire a GM, a CEO, whatever you want to call that person, and then they don't do what you did. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Your ears are really important to me. If you haven't already, why not check out joshcomrie.com. There's a bunch of free resources on there, a downloadable chapter of my upcoming book, 2 commas, a diagnostic to help you understand where your business may be at in relation to your exit journey. And why not feel free to drop me an email with any feedback that you could have. The only way I and any of us can improve is through feedback. Thanks again for listening.